Dinner started the way it always did at my in-laws' house. Too much food, too many opinions, an unspoken understanding that we would all play our roles. My daughter had been talking about her birthday trip to Disneyland for months. She'd saved brochures, watched ride videos, counted down days on the fridge calendar in careful pencil marks. It was the first big trip we'd ever planned just for her. Halfway through the meal, my father-in-law set his fork down and cleared his throat like he was about to announce something important. "I was thinking," he said lightly, "since Emma's older now, maybe she could give her Disneyland trip to Lily instead. Lily's never been. Emma's at the age where she should start acting like an adult about these things." The words were smooth, reasonable on the surface, generous even. My daughter froze. She didn't argue, didn't cry. She just stared at her plate and pressed her lips together the way she does when she's trying not to let something show. Her shoulders curved inward, almost apologetically, as if she'd already begun negotiating with herself. I felt it then, not surprise, but recognition. This wasn't the first time something meant for us had been redirected. Holiday hosting swapped at the last minute. Vacation plans rearranged to include everyone. Financial favors that were never quite repaid but always expected again was always framed as fairness, as maturity, as family. Across the table, Lily's parents stayed very still, not eager, not embarrassed, just waiting to see how this would land. My father-in-law leaned back in his chair. "It would mean a lot to your cousin," he added, looking directly at my daughter. "You're older. Act like an adult." It was subtle, the transfer of responsibility from him to a child. Opened my mouth, then closed it. Part of me was calculating the aftermath. Family gatherings are long. Grudges are longer. My husband had always been the quiet one in these situations, the one who let things slide to avoid escalation. But something changed in the space between his father's last sentence and the scrape of his chair. He stood. Not abruptly, not angrily, just decisively enough that every conversation at the table stalled. "We already acted like adults," he said, his voice steady. "Planned and paid for our daughter's birthday trip. It's not available for reassignment." No sarcasm. No raised volume. Just clarity. His father blinked surprised. "I was only suggesting." "And I'm answering." My husband replied, "Emma doesn't need to give up something she's been looking forward to so someone else feels included." That's not maturity, it's compliance. The word sat there. Compliance. No one interrupted him. He didn't look at his sister, or at Lily. He looked directly at his father. "If Lily wants to go to Disneyland, we can help you plan that. We'll share tips, but our daughter's birthday isn't a communal resource." It wasn't cruel, it wasn't dramatic, but it was unmistakable. The temperature in the room shifted. My mother-in-law's smile faltered. Lily's father suddenly became fascinated with his water glass. The suggestion, which had entered the room dressed as generosity, now looked like something else entirely. My father-in-law tried to recover. "There's no need to make it a big thing." "It wasn't," my husband said calmly, "till you asked our child to give something up." Silence followed. Not explosive silence, just the kind that reveals where everyone stands. My daughter slowly lifted her head. She didn't look victorious. She looked relieved. Someone had quietly returned something that had already been taken from her. Dinner resumed, but it moved differently. Conversations felt cautious, measured. No one brought up Disneyland again. On the drive home, Emma sat in the back seat staring out the window. After a while, she leaned forward and said softly, "Thought I was supposed to say yes." My husband kept his eyes on the road. "You're allowed to want what's yours," he said. That was all. In the weeks that followed, there was a shift. Invitations became less frequent. Group chats cooled. Father-in-law sent a message implying we'd misunderstood the spirit of family. We didn't argue back. We didn't justify, simply didn't reopen the topic. Something subtle but permanent had changed. For years, decisions flowed downward from the oldest voice in the room. That night, the current reversed, not violently, but firmly. Became clear that our household was not an extension of his authority. There was no celebration, no dramatic reckoning, just a boundary that held. On the morning of her birthday, Emma stood at the airport wearing the mouse ears we'd bought her in advance. She looked lighter, not because of the trip, but because she hadn't had to earn it by sacrificing herself. As we waited to board, my husband squeezed my hand. He hadn't humiliated anyone, hadn't cut anyone off. He'd simply answered a question that wasn't meant to have an answer. And in doing so, he made something unmistakable. Our daughter would never be asked to act like an adult by surrendering her childhood. Not at that table. Not again.